In a horrifying turn of events, a woman finds herself in the midst of a horde of ravenous zombies, her body already battered and covered in blood. However, her ordeal is far from over, as she suddenly goes into labor amidst the chaos and terror. The excruciating pain intensifies with each passing moment, but she bears an additional burden. She has been bitten on the arm by one of the infected during her desperate escape. Aware of the inevitable transformation that awaits her, the woman gathers every ounce of strength she can muster. With sheer determination, she fights through the searing agony, clenching her jaw and biting down on a piece of her own clothing to muffle her screams. She knows that even the slightest sound could attract the attention of the relentless zombies. Over time, her body begins to mutate, with her hands and feet gradually changing and her eyes losing their luster. The world around her is already overrun by zombies, and most of humanity has either been killed or turned into monstrous beings due to a mutating virus. Despite the grim circumstances, the woman successfully gives birth to a healthy baby within the midst of the zombie-infested chaos. Both she and her child defy the odds and grow up as normal human beings, although she lives in constant fear of being chased by her zombified mother. The mother's sense of smell allows her to locate her child even when hiding in corners, and she holds the child tightly, occasionally pretending to bite. Although the child experiences pain and helplessness, they come to understand that their mother is simply playing a twisted game of hide-and-seek. Despite turning into a zombie, the mother retains a fraction of her humanity due to her familial bond and love for her child. The child longs to venture outside with their mother, but she always refuses, looking at them with sharp fangs and a murderous gaze. The mother's refusal stems from her concern for the child's safety in the dangerous outside world. Unable to speak, the mother communicates with the child by writing on their palm. On this particular occasion, she leaves the house in search of Little Bear, and the child anxiously pleads for her swift return. However, the mother encounters a long-necked monster, narrowly dodging its attack and retaliating by using a spike that emerges from the back of her head. The monster is paralyzed and unconscious, providing the mother with an opportunity to scavenge for food. However, she finds the taste repulsive and can only manage to eat a meager amount to fill her stomach. While the woman is consuming her meager meal, shots ring out behind her. Two humans are engaging a group of zombies and seem to have discovered that the creatures are afraid of light. The woman observes their struggle and wonders how there can be survivors at this hour. She contemplates whether the humans know that their low-damage light and the sound of bullets are more likely to agitate the zombies. Suddenly, the woman notices something familiar about the long-haired man's backpack. Reacting quickly, she rushes toward him. Sensing danger, the man activates his flashlight, shining it at the woman who approaches them with incredible speed. She delivers a powerful kick to the man in red, causing him to fall to the ground in pain. The man's companion, holding a pistol, tells the woman to move aside, trembling with fear. Unbeknownst to him, his actions have angered the woman, but she refrains from harming him. Instead, she takes the backpack from his back and leaves him to fend for himself against the walkers. At this moment, the man felt utterly devastated. However, the next second, the approaching walkers stopped in their tracks. Witnessing this scene, the man's face lit up with a long-lost smile as he wondered if the woman had some kind of immunity. Just as he thought he was saved, he felt a few drops of water falling on his head. To his horror, he saw a monster standing behind him. 7 years ago, the woman had fought relentlessly to give birth to her child amidst the zombie-infested world. Now, the outside was surrounded by layers of zombies, and she could only hide in a corner, tightly holding her baby. Whenever zombies approached, the woman would eliminate them swiftly. On this day, the man, a living person, had mistakenly stumbled upon their hiding place. Seeing the corpses scattered on the floor, he attempted to turn away, but then he heard a cry of a child coming from behind. Curiosity got the better of him, and he cautiously approached the house. However, in the next second, a sharp needle was pressed against his throat. He saw a blood-covered monster, seemingly breastfeeding, and realized that this was the moment when the woman first encountered her husband, Cub. Recalling a past memory, the woman quickly grabbed the school bag from the man's back and left. She hurriedly searched for Bear while encountering various obstacles. Unfortunately, all their weapons were stolen, and even the school bag was taken. Left with a broken stone as his only means of defense, Bear wondered how long he could survive. At the brink of despair, he suddenly heard rustling footsteps. In the next second, a sharp needle appeared at his neck. To his surprise, it was his wife, who had mutated and lost her memory of him. She roared at him, but then something seemed to trigger a memory within her. Instead of killing him, she embraced him tightly. The man looked at his mutated wife, who had risked her life to find him, and realized she had retrieved his stolen backpack. After a brief rest, the couple prepared to return home, knowing the road was filled with zombies. However, these feeble creatures were no match for the woman, whose spikes on the back of her head dispatched walkers with each attack. To escape the hordes of zombies, the couple ran towards a narrow hallway. With limited fighting power, Bear used the torch to temporarily halt the attacking zombies. Suddenly, they both witnessed something horrifying. Before them stood a crumbling skyscraper, reaching a height of 100 meters. The man sighed, realizing they were in dire straits. Coincidentally, the flashlight ran out of power at that moment. As the zombies kept approaching, both of them desired to protect each other. The man raised his gun and shouted, "Come here, zombies!" The man was grabbed by an unknown object, causing the woman to ignore the zombies in front of her. With one hand tightly gripping Bear, she used her other hand to grab onto the steel bars of a tall building. However, the tentacles pulling him were incredibly strong, and they knew they couldn't hold on for much longer. The man grew increasingly terrified as he saw the massive creature below him, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. It was a giant monster with tentacles wrapped around his feet, refusing to let go. Salivating at the sight of its potential prey, the monster was about to feast. The woman above, however, let out a hysterical scream as the tentacles tightened around Bear's feet. Simultaneously, the number of zombies increased around the woman, and the couple's hands began to tremble. They knew that if this continued, they would surely meet their end. Without hesitation, the woman let go of the steel bar, and the monster below immediately pulled them downward. Perceiving this, Bear couldn't comprehend the situation, but the woman wore a disturbing smile. The monster continued to lick its tongue, thinking it had secured its meal. As the two drew closer to each other's mouths, it seemed as if the couple was about to become the monster's delicacy. However, the woman swiftly swung a sharp needle at the monster above, causing one of them to fall downward. She then aimed the sharp needle at the gargoyle's head below and pierced its tongue, which was tied to the husband's feet. Feeling the pain, the monster released its grip. The woman felt a wave of relief, knowing that once they landed and got rid of the surrounding zombies, they would be safe. In that moment, the man tightly held the woman, overjoyed to smell his husband's sweat. After they fell heavily onto the monster's head, the horde of zombies witnessing the scene was stunned. Due to inertia, the two were bounced away and tumbled for tens of meters upon hitting the ground. However, the man didn't have time to catch his breath before he immediately got up and carried his wife, quickly fleeing. The enraged gargoyle watched as the food escaped, showing its terrifying face. Would the couple be able to escape its clutches? Along their escape, they checked each other's injuries and were relieved to find that neither of them was hurt. Just as the woman wondered why her husband was so good to her, she suddenly felt a sharp horn pierce her body. Bear, witnessing this scene, shouted out to the other side, only to realize that the person who had arrived was the same monster from before. It licked its tongue, seemingly ready for a feast. Unbeknownst to it, the mutated woman possessed exceptional physical strength, rendering the minor wound meaningless. However, the zombies pursuing them remained relentless. While Bear rummaged through his backpack, the zombies were about to pounce on them. The woman, disregarding her own pain, swiftly swung the needle at several zombies in front of her, obliterating them instantly. However, the approaching zombies seemed to have detected something deadly and began shouting nervously. In the next second, a hand grenade appeared before them. Before they could react, it detonated, reducing the zombies to pieces. Seeing the effectiveness of the expired grenades, Bear threw all the remaining grenades out of the bag. The zombies chasing them were instantly blown to pieces, except for one with broken hands that continued to struggle. Unfortunately, the gargoyle standing behind the last remaining zombie was unharmed. With only one grenade left in their hands, the woman urgently requested Bear to hand it over to her. Surprisingly quick, she ran toward the gargoyle. The gargoyle, disdainfully observing this, reached out towards the couple. Sensing the danger, the man told his wife to move aside and quickly fell to the ground. However, to his horror, the woman didn't dodge. Instead, she turned around to face the troll. Witnessing this scene, Bear became furious and yelled, calling his wife silly and warning her about the distance between them. Unheeding, the woman pulled the safety pin off the grenade. In a mid-air toss, she kicked hard towards the gargoyle. Perplexed, the gargoyle looked at the grenade approaching it. In the next second, it caught the grenade in its mouth. Its head instantly exploded. The woman landed safely, not forgetting to give the dead troll a friendly gesture. Witnessing his wife's intelligence and power, the man rushed toward her with a smile. The two of them ran away before the approaching zombies could reach them. Bear was concerned about his wife's injury and hurriedly asked her to lift her clothes so he could check. The wound inflicted by the gargoyle had already healed, filling the man with relief as he realized his wife was no longer in danger. To keep their daughter from worrying, they rushed home, encountering no walkers along the way. Soon, they arrived at their house, and upon hearing their father's voice, their daughter rushed toward them, embracing him tightly and repeatedly rubbing her rough cheek against his. She eagerly showed her father her finished homework. Seeing their understanding and loving daughter, they lifted her up with joy. To reward her, the father pulled out a chocolate bar, and she stopped calling him Bear as she delighted in her favorite snack. The woman, observing her family's happiness, felt immense joy. Despite being tired, she felt a surge of strength, knowing that she would be by their side for the rest of her life. She was overjoyed to witness her family's happiness and knew that, no matter what challenges the future held, she would always be there for them. While the family celebrated and jumped for joy, a stranger stood outside their door. Was this icy man an enemy or a friend? As the mother and daughter continued to avoid the zombies, they stumbled upon a normal man. Over time, they helped each other, and he became not only the woman's husband but also the child's father. Thus, a family of three formed a happy and loving unit in a world filled with blood and gore. They didn't just have 3 meals a day together, they shared every aspect of their lives. Even while sleeping in the same bed, every time I ate, my mother watched over me. I never saw her eat. She couldn't speak, but she always wrote down the words she wanted to express in my hand. She would always encourage me to eat more and grow up faster. However, I often wondered what my mother ate. To find out, I took out my precious snacks and handed them to my mother, telling her how delicious they were. However, she responded with a helpless expression, saying she couldn't eat such things. Seeing her expression, I quickly took the snack back, reluctantly broke off a small piece, and handed it to her. To my surprise, she looked at me with a helpless face. Just then, my father came over and asked for a bite. I hurriedly put the cookie in my mouth, thinking my mother could eat something else. So, I brought her a noodle and handed it to her. But when she saw the sugar I often ate, my mother seemed bothered by my constant attention. In an instant, she let out a hysterical roar. Witnessing such a horrifying scene from my mother, my eyes welled up with tears. It was heartbreaking to see her look at my distressed face. Just as my mother was about to stop hiding the truth from me and tell me what was happening, her pupils suddenly became dull. I kept calling out, trying to wake her up, but seeing the nosebleed she left behind, I realized she had turned into a bloodthirsty monster. In that moment, we thought the woman would devour her own child, but she quickly opened the door and ran out. My father, who heard the commotion, rushed to check on me, only to encounter the horrifying woman. Just as she smiled at him, her arm pierced his body, followed by a maniacal laughter. With her sharp fingernails, she dismembered the woman and devoured her flesh, savoring each bite. While enjoying her gruesome meal, the woman thought about protecting her daughter. She couldn't eat her own family, she had to regain control. However, the sweetness was so tempting, and thoughts of consuming children's flesh made her salivate. Contemplating it, she threw her head back and let out a hissing sound that echoed through the sky. Before long, Mother returned home and lay beside us in the same bed. She gazed at me as I slept, reflecting on her thoughts. She never expected the smell of a child's blood to be so enticing. Something had nearly gone wrong. Early the next morning, my father went out to search for supplies. He warned me not to wake up my mother, or else he would punish me. With his backpack, he walked out of the house. Observing him leave, I wore a strange, eerie smile. I saw this as an opportunity to sneak out while my mother slept. I was ready to venture out. Humming a little song, I walked down the street filled with walkers, searching for useful items in the ruins. That's when I noticed a man and a woman, but I paid them no mind as I happily painted smiling faces on rocks with my watercolors. I rushed off in search of food and useful things, feeling a chill down my spine. What would I find in this realm of bodies? A 7-year-old girl scouring for supplies in a place overrun by zombies, unafraid and happily drawing on the ground. My mother was a powerful zombie queen capable of eliminating thousands of zombies on her own. However, there were men who were not afraid of death and harbored ill intentions toward her. Thinking that a clean girl like me must have her parents with her, they believed that catching me would grant them a fortune in supplies. Without much time to think, the two men pursued me. It didn't take long for them to locate me as I walked around a corner. One of the women immediately swung a baseball bat at me, unaware that danger was approaching them. At that moment, a man suddenly appeared behind the male companion and struck him with an axe. Startled by the sound, the woman stopped in her tracks. When she turned around, she discovered her companion lying in a pool of blood, trying to warn her to run but unable to make a sound. The woman, puzzled by what she witnessed, engaged the white-haired man who approached her. Dismissing her opponent's terrifying gaze and the look that seemed to foreshadow death, she asked if they were the parents of the child. She claimed that she hadn't done anything yet. After her words, she swung her baseball bat at her opponent. However, the white-haired woman felt that something was amiss. As she turned around, she realized that the man who had fallen to the ground had disappeared. While she was engaged in conversation, he had gone after the little girl. By this time, the woman swung her baseball bat in front of her attacker. But in the next second, her opponent's neck was swiftly cut off. His head and body separated without her even seeing how it happened. Meanwhile, I was hiding in a corner, trembling, unaware that danger was slowly closing in on me. The blink of an eye, Sister Gila was behind me. I turned my head to look and realized that it was my missing sister. Just as she asked me how I got there, we both noticed a hand slowly approaching me. In the next second, the monster fiercely opened its bloody mouth toward me, but Sister Gila swiftly struck its skull with an axe. The monster landed heavily on the ground, still looking at me. After struggling for a while, it retracted its head into its arm. I was in disbelief at what I had just witnessed, but Sister Gila seemed accustomed to such scenes. She continued to ask me why I was out there alone and where our parents were. However, my attention was fixated on the creepy hand. I barely registered her words. As a result, she hit my head with a big bag, and I had to silently agree to all her demands. I promised not to go out alone without my parents in the future. She kept talking, scolding me for not taking her words to heart. Frustrated, I retorted that I had grown up and could now go outside to find supplies. I thought it would relieve the pressure on my father. However, I didn't expect to see a murderous look in her eyes, which sent a chill down my spine. She eventually changed her mind and allowed me to go out, but only to places where there were adults. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I was overjoyed to hear that. She held my hand and led me towards where the adults should be. Soon enough, we arrived at the location Sister Gila had mentioned. However, it was dark and emitted a foul smell. In that moment, I longed for the warmth of home. I called out to Sister Gila, but there was no response except for an echo.